So the question you have is that I and me has to be removed and you has to be removed to go beyond, to reach to your inner state of realization. The removing, it all depends what is the process you call removing. Normally when we act in the world, we have time and resources. Resources may involve your friends, your car, your money, and the time. Because by the time you start any kind of action, it's going to span out over 2 minutes, 20 minutes, 2 hours, or 20 years in making. So that is the normal method that we use to do anything in the material world. But when it comes to the inner realization, all the things are reversed. You don't become the doer. Because if you try to remove I and me and you and all these things, you become the doer again. Who is removing it? Only I again. So that's your ego itself is very deceiving, because this is what you've been doing for all the time. If you don't have any money in your pocket and you want $10, you have to go and work for it. So our normal tendency is that, okay, I is my enemy. I want to remove the I, right? So the question is, what are the methods? If you walk into a room and there is darkness, you don't like darkness, what do? Can you pick up the darkness and throw it out? Darkness is not there. Darkness is absence of light. All you have to do is to find the light. That's all. Once the light is found, a little lamp is lighted up, the darkness disappears. So most of the meditators, the mistake they make is they try to fight with their ego. I want to suppress it. I want to do this. I want to do this. Meditation is not doing anything. It's a process of non-doing. Where you're not doing anything, your goal is to find your inner light rather than fighting with something. You find your inner light and then tell me what happened to the ego. It disappears because it was fake. It cannot stand the light of your inner light, inner self. So the whole process of dismantling your ego should not be taken in the first place. There was a Buddhist monk named, I forgot this, Bodhisattva. He actually went to China. And Bodhisattva was invited by Emperor Wu, W-U. So he said, we heard so much about Bodhisattva. You rest here in our guest house and you come tomorrow. I will send a servant. So he says, okay, but believe me, there is nobody like Bodhisattva. So, King said that, what do you mean? But he says, I'll talk to you about it later. So next day, the servant goes to pick up Bodhisattva in a chariot. And the servant says, Bodhisattva, are you ready? King wants to see you in the court. He says, I'll come, but there is nobody like Bodhisattva. So servant, what does he say? He gets confused. He said, what is this guy talking about? But anyway, king has called him, so let's take him. So chariot takes Bodhisattva. The chariot is taken over. King comes out of his court to receive him. He says, thank you, Bodhisattva, for coming here. So Bodhisattva says, I'm not Bodhisattva, but if you insist, we'll go with it. But he says, you're really complicated. Just explain to me. What are you talking about that you are not Bodhisattva? And yet everybody calls you Bodhisattva. He says, I'll give you an example. Look at this chariot. You remove the horses. So horses were removed. Now what do you have? We have a chariot without horses. He says, okay, remove the nails that ties everything. So nails were removed. Now the wheels are fallen apart. Chariot is standing, the wheels are on the ground. It's little by little. So now the handles were removed. All the tiers, the planks that were making was removed. Now we have like 10,000 pieces sitting there. He says, what happened to the chariot? He says, you dismantle it. He says, there you go. It was never a chariot. It was 10,000 pieces combined into one, and you gave a name to it. So I, ego, you, and me, we are nothing but collections of our memories that we own such amount of money, such and such number of clothes, such and such this, such and such number of friends. All this put together, the mind collects all these things and calls it ego. Ego is never real, but we make it real. So how do you fight something? How do you remove something that's not real? You don't. You don't waste your time on it. You just intensify your search for your inner self. And the one that's going to help you the most is the awareness. Awareness is what separates you from the other things. If I show you something, you and something else is separate because you are aware that you are you and something else is something else. So the same process, you have to use it in meditation. You have to learn how to observe your thoughts. Thoughts will come, thoughts will go. You have to have a faith in materialism also to the point in such a way that material things cannot last. So just the way material things don't last because they go through birth, growth, decay and death, thoughts will do the same thing. You have to have faith in that material things don't last. Thoughts are material. They will be born, they will exist, they will start getting faded, and they will disappear. And you let that process happen. It's just so that you observe it. But you keep an eye on it that yes, that's the process going. After several weeks of regular practice, you realize that all these thoughts are coming and going, but the one that is observing, there is something else that exists within me, which is not part of the thoughts, but it has a capacity to observe. And that's your awareness, that's your chitta function. So you start becoming aware of your awareness. And the second thing will come up, that despite your absence of ego and your thoughts and your desires and your identification, you will still exist. So you'll be left with two things, existence and awareness. So that's how I started in the beginning. I reached to that state very fast. So I had two things to juggle, awareness and existence. I was so sure that I exist. Even though my thoughts were gone, I existed. And I was aware of the thoughts. So I started intermingling both. That I started becoming aware of my existence. Yes, I am aware that I exist. And also I applied the existence to my awareness, that yes, awareness also exists. And eventually both the things merge into one entity, which is aware and it exists. That's your Sat and Chit combined. And then the Anand starts, that goes further back. Because when you still exist, even though you are formless, you don't have a shape, you don't have a size, you don't have nothing, you still exist. That's what they call asmita, I amness. You still exist. So then you're still halfway there. And then that Sat and Chit combines, awareness and existence combines into one entity, which is aware and exists at the same time. And the Anand is a byproduct. You don't look for. Again, you have to realize that you don't look for anything. Just because I told you, you don't look for awareness. You realize awareness. It's up to you to realize it, not look for anything. Because that's something you have to always think, that this is a journey you're taking yourself, which you have never done before. You may have maps, but the findings will have to be yours. It has to be authentic. It cannot be learned from others, right? So awareness will remain and the existence will remain into one form entity, and then you start going deeper and deeper and deeper. And the joy just springs from within. It just happens. And that's where you synchronize with the infinite consciousness. And you stay in that state as much as possible. That experience in meditation is one thing. But then spilling it into your daily life is another thing. Because the moment you open up your eyes, you're dealing with the world, and he says, what happened to all the experience that I had? So that requires another level of awareness. To be aware that you have learned lessons of meditation, and to put that in practice on a day-to-day basis, you have to be able to observe your own body reacting with the samsara. Literally, you are not part of it. You are just observing your body and the mind interacting with the world, but you are standing apart. It requires a lot of practice and a lot of awareness. And it's going to falter. People falter all the time. But then ultimate goal is to 24/7 awareness. That's when you become Buddha.
Okay.
All right?